In Boston, a single woman in her 30s, Allie Darling, was on a desperate search for true love. After a night out drinking, she had dated several guys, but her heart longed for something deeper. One morning, she woke up early, having spent the night with her biker boyfriend, Rick. She got up and put on makeup, wanting to look presentable when he woke up. She returned to bed and pretended to be asleep. When Rick woke up, he couldn't help but admire Allie's beauty, which flattered her. Though she pretended not to have heard his compliment, she got up and made breakfast for him, and, hungry, he enjoyed the aroma of his favorite sausage. As they shared the meal, Allie asked him to accompany her to her sister's wedding. However, Rick refused upon learning that her parents would also attend. He had never wanted a serious relationship with Allie. He only visited her when it was convenient. Although Allie was aware of his plan, his rejection hurt her. As she was leaving, Allie saw her neighbor, a musician named Colin, arriving with another girl. Colin was a tall, attractive guy, but also reluctant to commit. Over the months, Allie and Rick broke up. She shared the news with her younger sister Daisy, who had always known their relationship wouldn't work. Even though her older sister disapproved of bikers, Allie had felt compelled to try. Desperate, she wondered how many more men she would have to meet to find the right one. At her job, Allie tried to pretend that everything was fine. She put on her best suit and walked toward the office. However, her colleagues noticed that her boss, Roger, was in a bad mood. Shortly after, he called her into his office with a smile, which made her feel hopeful. As she sat on the sofa, her boss suddenly informed her that it was necessary to reduce the number of employees. She was being permanently fired. She felt surprised. To calm herself, she asked how many employees had been laid off. Roger replied that she was the only one affected. Allie took the subway with all her belongings. Her mother tried to contact her, but she decided to cut the call. She wasn't in the mood to talk to her. She would surely be disappointed to learn that she had lost her job. While waiting for her train, she started reading a magazine. In it, it was stated that American women, on average, date 10.5 men throughout their lives. Allie felt uneasy. That figure seemed unrealistic, as the number felt like double to her. An older woman next to her also read the article and reacted the opposite way, feeling overwhelmed by the quantity. Allie wanted to debate with her, but she was on public transport and thought it would be embarrassing to do so. She found the magazine interesting, so she decided to keep it. She took a notebook and began to list the men she had been with. The first on the list was Jake Adams, but she realized she had forgotten the others. Once she remembered them, she quickly jotted their names down in her notes. The next day, Allie visited her mother's house. Her parents were already divorced, and her father was dating another woman. Her younger sister's engagement party was being held there. Ella Darling welcomed her daughter warmly and asked about Rick. Allie reasoned that her mother had been waiting a long time to meet him, which left her dismayed. Ella Darling was a perfectionist mother who always wanted the best for her children. Among her daughters, Daisy led the most balanced life between love and career. Allie had always wanted to please her mother, so she often lied when asked about her boyfriend's job. Furthermore, she never mentioned that she had been fired. Allie mentioned that her cousin Beau was present, which displeased Allie. She made it clear to her mother that they were only cousins-in-law. Allie acted that way because Allie had a relationship with him. Allie took her pen and notebook and included Beau in her notes. Then she went upstairs to see Daisy and asked her the name of the guy who lived next door. She had dated him but couldn't remember his name. It was Jerry Perry. Moreover, the man was also obsessed with Daisy. Daisy's younger sister asked Allie what she was writing, to which Allie replied it was nothing important. After Daisy went downstairs, Allie began to count all the men on her list. Allie was scared to discover she had a total of 19 dead bodies in her romantic history. Upset by such a revelation, Allie decided to drink a bottle of wine to try to forget about it. Allie came downstairs, a little dizzy, and took off her heels for balance. She ran into Beau and warned him to be careful, as he had been with another woman while she was drunk. Meanwhile, Daisy and Eddie seemed to be enjoying the party. Allie officially announced their engagement to the guests. Allie, in her speech to the engaged couple, started revealing random secrets as she was slightly inebriated. She mentioned that Eddie and Daisy had broken up in the past and that Eddie had been dating her best friend, who was also present at the party. The crowd was excited by the revelation. Allie continued by saying that it was only at Daisy's high school reunion that they got back together, as Eddie had regretted leaving her when he saw how beautiful she was. She joked that she should have attended that reunion to find the right man, although sadly her bangs looked awful at the time, causing her to miss the opportunity. Finally, she wished them both happiness and toasted the man next to her with her bottle of wine. She burst out laughing when she broke the glass. The music was loudly echoing, marking the start of the fun. Allie had gone to the club with Daisy and her group of friends. After a while of sitting on the sofa, they felt bored, and Allie suggested playing "How Many People Have You Slept With?" She asked permission to get paper, a pen, and some liquor, convinced that revelations would flow once everyone was a little merrier. Allie asked the waiter for a bottle of champagne. Suddenly, someone knocked on the table, giving them a slight scare. It was her boss, Roger. He felt awkward about firing her, and as compensation, he decided to buy them some drinks. Allie felt relieved by the gesture and joked that she didn't have enough salary to pay for it. Roger knew Allie wasn't satisfied with her previous marketing job and encouraged her to apply for the position she really wanted. He thought it was about time she looked for a new job, especially since she had developed an attraction to her boss. In an unexpected moment, Allie confessed she liked Roger. He was surprised, not knowing if she was serious or if the alcohol had influenced her sincerity. Allie returned to her friends, bringing the bottle of liquor Roger had offered them. Finally, they started the game. Everyone wrote down the number of guys they had been with. Allie was amused that her first 3 friends had less than 10. She felt nervous, as it would soon be her turn to reveal her number. Suddenly, her friend Jamie surprised everyone by confessing she had been with 13 guys. Allie, for her part, finally found someone who had broken the 10 barrier. When everyone finished showing their papers, it was Allie's turn. Shaking, she showed her number but pretended to cough and tore her paper. She held up the number 9, feeling relieved that everyone believed her. However, one of her friends picked up the other half of the paper, and all her friends were frightened to discover that Allie had reached 19. Jamie, for her part, winked at her. Allie felt ashamed, although she never denied it. Annoyance flooded her as she remembered that, a few days ago, she had read in a magazine that a woman who sleeps with 20 or more lovers tends to remain single all her life. Someone commented that it was just an article and didn't necessarily apply to reality. Allie felt relieved to hear that. However, her smart friend pointed out that the content was true, according to a Harvard scientist's study. Despite everything, Allie remained hopeful as she had only had 19 men. She still had one chance left. This time, she wanted to make the best decision of her life. She swore to her friends that she wouldn't sleep with a guy unless he was the one. The 20th man in her life should be her future husband. Allie toasted everyone with wine. She went a little crazy and climbed onto the table, shouting that she would only sleep with 20 men. The next day, Allie woke up with a tired body and a bad headache. She was in her apartment. Suddenly, she noticed a man next to her. It was her boss, Roger. She quickly put on her clothes and rushed out to the living room. She contacted her younger sister. Daisy congratulated her on completing the list of 20 men. Allie yelled at them for not listening to her the night before. They had forced her to go home with them, but she hadn't paid attention. After hearing that, Allie slapped herself, full of regret. Roger woke up and asked for a newspaper. Allie smiled as if nothing had happened and opened the door to get it. She was surprised to see Colin there. He also entered her room. Roger shook his hand, while Allie wished Roger would disappear. She used the excuse that she needed to talk to him. Colin was surprised to see that she had hired him. It was effective. Roger said goodbye and took Allie's hands, expressing his intention to invite her to dinner. Allie smiled, although awkwardly. She no longer wanted to get involved with him. Colin, who was on the sofa watching the scene, sensed Allie's discomfort with Roger. She looked awkward, so he helped cover for her and told Roger they would have a tenants meeting that night, meaning she couldn't go with him. Allie nodded, feeling relieved, and smiled at Colin. Roger left, telling her to call him when she was free. Allie accompanied him, and upon arriving at Colin's apartment, she ran into a woman looking for him. Allie looked at Colin, who pretended not to hear her. Colin pleaded with her not to tell the woman he was hiding. It was then that Allie learned that Colin slept with different women every night. He didn't want to give them false hope, so he usually hid from them in the morning. They both thanked each other. Colin mentioned he had seen her video frantically toasting at the bar, which made Allie feel embarrassed. She asked how he knew, and Colin smiled, explaining that he had found it on Google. Then he opened the door, but the woman had already left, so he returned to his apartment. Allie headed to a bakery to meet Daisy, who was choosing her wedding cake. Instead of helping, Allie just sampled the cake and ate everything she was served, stress eating after learning something had happened between her and Roger. which was even more embarrassing because he was her ex-boss. Ali stared blankly at the door, uncomprehending. Suddenly, a familiar guy caught her attention. It was Donald, her ex-boyfriend, whom she used to call Disgusting Donald for being chubby and unattractive. However, now she couldn't believe the transformation. Donald looked attractive and thin, and more confident than ever. Daisy was also impressed by his change. Ali approached him, acting charmingly to get noticed. Donald recognized her, and Ali began to discreetly flirt, planning to make him fall in love again. But at that moment, someone approached him. It was Kara, his fiancée, who was also looking for a cake. Donald looked very proud to take Kara's hand. She was pretty and smart. She was also an engineer, and they met at a conference. Ali felt embarrassed. She looked older than Kara. She also regretted having left him earlier. Donald introduced Ali to his fiancée as if she were an old friend, which made Ali open her eyes in surprise. Hearing that, it hurt her that he denied her as an ex-girlfriend. To hurt Donald, Ali commented that she had gone to the bakery to look for a cake for her upcoming wedding. My fiancé is a scientist and is currently at the North Pole for research purposes, she added. After that, Ali left muttering, unable to bear being introduced as a friend. She told him he was lucky she was with him even if he seemed disgusting to her before. Daisy reassured her, assuring her that men usually become more attractive with age. Hearing that, Ali realized something. She couldn't leave her exes behind. Maybe she could get back with them. Perhaps they had also become attractive like Donald. That night, Ali searched for all her exes on the internet while enjoying some wine, toasting each one of them. She felt stressed seeing many names pop up. One of them was Miles, and she got tired of scanning their profiles. Finally, Ali fell asleep without having found any of her exes. The next day, she woke up in front of the computer and remembered Colin. She was good at finding people. She went out and looked for him, offering him money to help her locate the men she had dated. Colin refused, scoffing at her and saying he didn't want to expose his buddies. Ali got angry at his joke and, frustrated, went inside and slammed the door. She tried to think of other alternatives. Soon after, an idea came to mind. She put on her coat and headed to Colin's apartment. He was surprised to see her, as he was with another woman again. Ali remembered that every morning Colin hid from his dates. She cried at the thought of it. A family member had an accident, she told him, and took his hands, insisting they had to go to the hospital. She also helped him pack his things while the woman watched them. She felt sorry for what was happening. Ali and Colin slammed the door and headed to her room. Colin burst out laughing, impressed by Ali's performance. The woman commented that to help her find her exes, he could freely hide in her apartment every morning. Colin accepted the deal. They had breakfast together. Ali handed Colin the list of men she wanted to find and wondered if they were alive and single. It would be ideal if they also resided in Boston. Ali instructed him to start from the beginning. Colin felt overwhelmed by the number of people he needed to locate. He teased Ali, who seemed to be looking for a new relationship. Daisy's wedding was fast approaching, and Ali asked him to help her find a wedding dress. Her friends were also there to support her. When Daisy came out of the fitting room, she looked stunning in the dress she had chosen, which excited her friends even more. Meanwhile, Ali was busy sending text messages. Colin sent her a message informing her that he had already found Dave Hansen. Without realizing it, Ali began to read the message aloud. Daisy and the girls heard her and realized she was looking for her exes. Ali realized she had done this so she wouldn't have to deal with more than 20 men. Daisy was surprised and considered it useless, as those men had never lasted in their relationships. Why give it another chance? Ali, for her part, never listened to her younger sister. She went to a club with Colin, who told her that Dave was nearby and that he was able to track him through a website. Finally, Ali saw him, but she was annoyed that he still worked as a waiter and magician. She didn't want to waste time dating him. Colin laughed at her, and even though they were already there, Ali backed off. He suggested she date another man, but Ali accidentally mentioned she didn't want to date more than 20 men. Colin found it funny that it was important to her. Ali wanted to be the ideal girl, as men nowadays have very high standards. The next day, Ali woke up late, and upon getting up, she saw Colin on her sofa, hiding again after spending the night with another woman. She was surprised that he had found another girl so quickly. Colin told her that he had created a Facebook account for her, thinking it would be useful to look for her exes online while they were at it. And he was right. Guy number 14, Evan Slater, sent her a friend request and tagged her in a photo. Ali was delighted as she also liked Evan. However, upon approaching Colin's laptop, she was disappointed to discover that he was married and had children. Angry, Ali threatened Colin that if he didn't do his job well, he couldn't stay in her apartment. Ali was about to make coffee, but her coffee maker was broken. Colin apologized for damaging it and, to cheer her up, invited her to his apartment and ordered Chinese food for breakfast. Ali learned that Colin had dedicated a space in his room to researching her exes, like an expert spy. Colin had a board on which he had pasted all the photos of her ex-boyfriends. Next to each image, he had written detailed notes about the updates he had received. Ali was impressed by his meticulousness. While enjoying some beers, Colin shared his initial findings and had also printed leaflets so Ali could follow her investigation. At that moment, Ali asked him if he had managed to find her first boyfriend, Jake Adams. Colin replied that he didn't have any information on him yet, as he was having a hard time tracking him down. He guessed that Jake was rich, and wealthy people are usually very good at protecting their privacy. Colin suggested that instead, Ali should consider dating Simon Forrester, who was divorced and lived around the corner. Colin accompanied her to Simon's house and before arriving gave her some tips on the type of separated women he might be interested in. He wanted Ali to resemble those women. Confidently, Colin entered Simon's house and went upstairs looking for him. Meanwhile, Ali went to the living room and found familiar faces in a photo frame. It was Donald and his fiancée. Donald arrived from the grocery store and was surprised to see Ali in his house, furious because she had entered without permission. Ali tried to explain that she and her fiancé were looking for a house, as Pierre would be returning from the North Pole soon. As she spoke, she started walking slowly toward the door, but Donald stopped her. She was holding the photo frame and felt embarrassed. She decided to leave it in the closet next to her and quickly left. Donald went to the kitchen to unload his groceries, and Colin took the opportunity to run downstairs. As they argued outside, Ali saw Simon, who lived right next door. He looked attractive and showed no signs of going through a divorce. Ali remembered that she had dated him when she worked as a waitress, and that Simon was a British tourist she had entertained at a restaurant. Simon recognized her. He approached her and told her she still looked beautiful, which flattered Ali. She behaved charmingly and flirted with him. Simon invited her to play darts, and Ali agreed to participate, even imitating his British accent. However, since she didn't know how to play darts, Simon suggested they go for a drink instead. The situation became awkward for Ali, and Simon, visibly irritated, said goodbye and ended the night. Tired, Ali returned to her apartment and asked Colin to remove Simon from her list. Despite her efforts to sound British, Simon didn't seem interested. Colin couldn't help but laugh while listening to her. Colin invited her to the rooftop, where they continued searching for Ali's exes while enjoying a drink. That day, Colin managed to find more men, some of them professionals, although they lived very far away. Others only resided in Boston but were too adventurous for Ali. Ali asked about Jake Adams again, and Colin discovered he was in Africa, managing his family's philanthropic foundation and overseeing the construction of a school there. Ali was dismayed to hear that, and Colin assured her he would return soon. He suggested she date Jerry Perry in the meantime, and Ali, seeing how Colin was striving to help her, felt grateful to have him by her side. The next day, Colin arrived early at the park and took his nephew to see Jerry Perry's puppet show. After the show, Ali approached Jerry while holding little Justin. He hadn't changed much. He was still shy and peculiar, although his braces had been removed. Jerry was delighted to see her and suggested they exchange numbers to catch up. However, when Ali returned with Colin, he asked her to remove Jerry from her life. His appearance discouraged her, but Colin didn't listen. He was more concerned that she wasn't with Justin. Realizing she was holding the wrong hand, he exclaimed, "Kid!" and ran to look for Justin. Meanwhile, Ali asked the little boy about his mother, and the child just smiled at her, saying she looked like her. Shortly after, a plump woman scolded the child for running away. It was his mother. Ali froze, pondering what the child had said, feeling insecure and thinking that maybe she looked old and stressed. Finally, Colin found Justin, and they walked him through the park. During the walk, Colin learned that Jake Adams had been Ali's first boyfriend. They had promised not to date anyone else while they were together, although distance separated them. However, Ali broke that promise when she met Jerry Perry. the first man she had relations with. Colin laughed, commenting that among so many men, Allie had chosen a peculiar puppeteer. Allie's older sister, Daisy, invited her to lunch. She wanted Allie to tell her mother that her father would attend her wedding. Allie arrived and was upset to hear the news. She told Daisy she would never participate in the wedding unless she told her father not to go. After lunch, Allie apologized to her sister for not being able to accompany her, as she was traveling to Miami to meet someone. The next day, Allie arrived in Miami and immediately went to see Barrett, who was now a gynecologist and practicing his profession. Allie made an appointment to see him, but was disappointed to realize that he didn't recognize her. Allie vaguely remembered attending a similar university with Barrett and having dated in the past. However, the spark was no longer there, and he wasn't as attractive to her as before either. Back in her apartment, Allie decided to remove Barrett from her contact list. The situation led Allie to have a nervous breakdown. Tired of meeting ex-partners and wasting money on them despite being unemployed. Finally, she decided to put an end to that habit and felt desperate to find the right person. It was then that Colin mentioned having spotted another acquaintance, Tom Piper, currently working as a senator's assistant in Washington, D.C. The news excited Allie, sparking her interest in dating him again. The next morning, Allie arrived in Washington, D.C., where Colin kept her informed of her movements. Allie complained about having numb legs after the long journey and feeling uncomfortable in her formal attire. While checking the photos sent by Colin, Allie accidentally bumped into someone. It was Donald. They met again, although Allie feared being discovered because she was going to meet an ex. She then decided to visit the scientist she pretended to be engaged to, who would attend a conference with the president to present a discovery. After a brief chat with Donald, he quickly said goodbye due to his upcoming commitment. Allie entered a library where security guards watched every corner. Among them, she spotted Tom Piper, passionate about politics. Remembering the presidential campaign for George Bush, Allie was happy to see how Tom was achieving his dreams. Intimidated by the atmosphere of the place, she approached a table surrounded by elegantly dressed businessmen engrossed in their reading, feeling somewhat out of place. Allie was in the middle of a dilemma. She couldn't see Tom from her chair and had to politely ask to move it. A group of men came over to help and moved the table following Allie's instructions, but because it was heavy, they accidentally dropped it, also breaking a lamp in the process. This incident caught everyone's attention, including Tom, who was delighted to see Allie and still remembered her fondly. Tom invited Allie to a luxurious party at a hotel and gave her a beautiful red dress, making Allie feel special and appreciated for his distinguished treatment. When the day of the party arrived, Allie had difficulty walking in the tight pencil dress, but Tom was impressed by her beauty and admired her deeply. Despite Colin's insistence on calling her, Allie preferred to focus on Tom. At the party, Tom revealed to Allie his dream of becoming a senator and eventually running for president, even hastily proposing marriage to her. To Allie's surprise, Tom admitted to being gay, confessing that he discovered his orientation after dating her, which left Allie disappointed. Back in Boston, Allie was still wearing the red dress Tom gave her when she ran into Colin, who surprised her by decorating his clay sculptures with colored lights and sharing a pizza dinner. Colin mentioned he had found a single guy from college, Julie, but Allie was no longer interested. Colin excited Allie with his electric guitar music, making her dance and enjoy the moment. Afterward, he proposed to accompany Allie to her sister's wedding, which made her happy as she didn't want to disappoint her mother. After a few drinks, they decided to venture into a country club, where they played basketball and had fun until they realized the security guard had discovered them, managing to escape in time. Allie playfully teased Colin about his basketball skills, but at least he knew how to play. However, she was surprised and impressed by his guitar-playing talent, considering he could make money with it if he wanted to. Colin mentioned that he was simply interested in enjoying the music and had no intention of making it his livelihood. During their walk, Colin showed interest in learning more about Allie's passions and discovered that she loved sculpting clay miniatures, something that started as a simple hobby in her apartment and had now become an unexpected business. Encouraged by the idea of trying new things, they decided to venture out together and ended up jumping into the sea from the boulevard, despite the cold, having a lot of fun in the process. Waking up the next day next to Colin, Allie remembered she had plans to meet Daisy, who was very punctual and whom she wanted to impress by arriving on time. While choosing flowers at the shop, Allie smiled as she recalled her previous dates with Tom and Jake, but explained to her friends that she no longer cared about those romantic matters, focusing now on the date she would have at the wedding with Colin. Daisy was surprised by Allie's invitation to Colin, and some friends confronted Allie about the nature of her relationship with him, warning her not to fall in love with him. Ali clarified that they were only friends and continued dedicating herself to sculpting clay as a gift for her sister, despite being hurt by her friend's comments about Colin. After discovering that Colin had Jake Adams' contact number, Ali felt confused and confronted Colin, who explained that he was falling in love with her and that this time it was different. However, Ali made it clear that her feelings were for Jake, not Colin, and that she wasn't interested in a romantic relationship with him. Hurt, Colin withdrew. Despite everything, Ali left a long voicemail for Jake and finally received a call from him. Excitement overcame her, and she decided to share the news with Daisy, who revealed her desire for her father not to attend the wedding. However, when they arrived at lunch with Daisy's father and his girlfriend Jacinda, Ali discovered that her mother would be present at the wedding. Later, Ali prepared to meet Jake Adams, looking stunning in her black dress, excited to finally meet him. She arrived early at the restaurant feeling ravenously hungry, so she started eating immediately. Shortly after, Jake arrived, looking attractive in his impeccable suit. Unlike other men Ali had dated, Jake seemed not to have aged. During dinner, Ali found Jake somewhat intimidating as he boasted about his successful career, while she felt pressured as she was unemployed at the moment. When Jake asked what she did, Ali mentioned she was involved in art and marketing, as well as sculpting clay miniatures focusing on urban scenes. Impressed by her talent, Jake wanted to see more, and Ali took him to her apartment. The next day, Daisy returned to the boutique with her sister, and Ali kept mentioning Jake, who still looked as attractive as ever. Meanwhile, Daisy, worried about her weight and stressed about a family situation, confided in Ali, who sympathized and promised to support her in talking to their mother. Ali was annoyed by Ali and Daisy's lack of transparency, which led to Daisy's fear of revealing a secret that her mother already knew when she showed them a magazine that revealed the relationship between Ali and Jake. The mother wanted Jake to break up with her daughter, even keeping an old photo from when they were high school sweethearts. Ali was surprised to see her mother's happiness upon learning about her relationship with Jake and agreed to have him as her +1 at the wedding. During the celebration, there were moments of tension and strong emotions, but everything finally resolved with joy and love. In the middle of the reception, romantic music filled the air, and emotional moments were shared among the characters. Jake surprised Ali by expressing his feelings for her and proposing they go to France together, which left her thoughtful. Meanwhile, the coordinator asked Ali to deliver a message to the newlyweds. Ali mentioned that she used to be afraid when Daisy dated Eddie, thinking all the attention would be focused on him. However, over time, she realized that Daisy was more authentic when she was with him, as Eddie loved her just as she was. This caused a touching nostalgia in Ali for the moments of her childhood when she used to be the one teaching Daisy, while now it was Daisy who was teaching her about the true essence of love, being oneself. The guests couldn't hold back their tears and applauded after hearing her emotional message. After a conversation with Jake, Ali revealed that she had important commitments in Boston that she couldn't abandon, so she rejected his proposal to go to France together. Despite recognizing Jake's perfection, Ali felt that they didn't fit and decided to end the relationship. She apologized for taking so long to realize her feelings and also expressed feeling pressure knowing how much her mother loved him. Ella Darling showed her anger upon discovering that Jake had left, wishing that Ali would find someone who fully accepted her, even if she had had relationships with other people. Furthermore, Ali longed for her mother's unconditional acceptance, recognizing that she hadn't lived the perfect life she always imagined. Daisy, for her part, revealed an important secret. She was 4 months pregnant and feared her mother's reaction. Ella Darling embraced her daughters, regretting having pressured them with life decisions. Subsequently, Ali desperately searched the list of weddings scheduled for that day, running to the parking lot to grab a car and visit the different events in search of Colin. Despite being caught in traffic jams and making risky decisions, she managed to arrive at a wedding reception where, to her surprise, she saw Colin performing. Approaching him, Ali expressed her apologies for hurting him in the past and acknowledged that she felt more authentic when she was with him, being accepted just as she was. Colin also shared his feelings of inferiority compared to Jake, but Ali chose him, recognizing his honesty and respect. The couple shared an emotional moment and kissed, with Colin revealing that Ali was only the 20th woman he had been with, leaving Ali laughing spontaneously. Upon receiving a message from Ali's ex-lover denying having had relations with her, Ali felt relieved to confirm that Colin was her 20th and final lover.